Hey Doc, how you doing?
Well, well, I'm good. Great. They're all happy and healthy.
Here in January because I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, that's my nephew.
Is she a math person?
Yeah.
Oh, cute. I didn't know that. Where is
American
she?
Idol.
Do you know? She was
It's
like,
my brother's.
maybe. She
kids.
was like in Australia and then back.
They
and now
live
she's
over on
somewhere else.
Daughtery Street. You know where the Red Rocker Inn is, right next door. I don't know if you know ever knew the Polks. They used to live there in that house.
Other than Grant, she's the one I
My
get
niece is in school at Lipscomb in Nashville.
Yeah.
So she's a
She just seems unhappy.
sophomore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's them. Yeah, they're
Appreciate
good.
that
They're
about
really
her.
good. Pretty neat.
Folks, according to my watch or Verizon, it is 6:30. It's time to start the meeting. If we would just sit in silence for a moment before we start. Amen. Commissioners, you've seen the agenda for the forum. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second from Commissioner Dasher. Any discussion, additions, or changes? All those in favor of the motion then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. I want to start it off tonight. It's a little different on the forum. We usually, and we will open it up for comments, any comments or questions you might have. But for some time, the commissioners have talked about coming up with some way to honor Billy Graham. And we've talked about statues, and we've talked about this and that and the other. Well, the idea has arisen, Commissioner Widmer, I think, gave birth to it, to rename, not rename a street, but put an honorarium on a street. And it's going to be Assembly Drive, if it's okay with everybody. Assembly Drive, the name will remain the same. But as you've seen on many other stretches of road, in honor of a person, they name that so-and-so. And we're talking about, you want to get the sign? Making Assembly Drive Billy Graham Way. And the floor is open for comments and or discussion. So after you folks, it's up to y'all.
Good evening. Wade Burns, 779 Foreman Siding Road, ETJ. I don't know anybody that would have a higher regard for their integrity and contribution to the world and to the world of faith than Billy Graham. I was thinking that it might be a change in the name from Assembly Drive.
Can I just
Yes,
clarify? It is not a change in name.
I understand. I heard the mayor.
If you went out to
Right.
Google Maps, it would still say Assembly Drive. It would simply be a nameplate on top.
I'm still waiting for Google to figure out I live in
Me too.
Montreal.
That's all right.
But the 125 years ago, Montreat, along with Christmont, Blue Ridge Assembly, Dorothy Wall, Ridgecrest, bought this barren land that had all been stripped of its woods for assembly facilities, for church work. And fortunately for us, Montreat, despite about 4 to 5 times it faced bankruptcy, has stayed along and thrived and remains the heartbeat of this community. And so I think the name is important. I think that the better, because one thing I know about Billy Graham was he was not about his name, and he was about his ministry. And I got to think what we really need is need one of those very prominent historical markers. The only one for Montreat is in front of the Baptist Church in Black Mountain, but we need a really nice historical marker that talks about the Reverend Billy Graham, a Montreat resident for 60 years, who led the world and all this stuff. It needs to be something about his message, but not, his name was not something he wanted promoted. We have the importance of it being singly focused on Assembly Drive is telling you where you are and why you're here, and it's guiding you to Assembly Inn, and then it's also guiding you to the auditorium where, for decades, biggest event in Montreat in the summertime wasn't the parade, it was the General Assembly, the entire leadership of the Southern Presbyterian Church. And Billy Graham has my utmost respect, and there's no but to it. But I don't think we want to do anything in any way that lessens our real history with more current history, which is Billy Graham. And so I would be recommending that we maybe make a contribution toward getting a proper monument that describes who he was.
Page, you'll be the first we call when we start raising money for that monument.
I'll send it in with my tax paper.
Who else? Any comments you want to make about the, and then we'll move on to just the forum. Sure.
I'm Sally Giles, and I'm a newcomer to Montreat, only about 5 or 6 years. I live on 426 Kentucky Road. My only thought about it is as much as I admire and respect Billy Graham, I feel like the reason that Billy Graham was in Montreat was because of his wife, who selected this place to live because she went back years and years, or her family did, and that's why he was in Montreat. So I think whatever we do, whatever's decided, I think her name is the one that should be included. Maybe, predominant. I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Sally. You know, Jean has a chapel named after her. Who's up? Tom, I couldn't see you back there for the Billy Graham Way sign.
Tom Friss, 98 Friss Road. I have nothing against naming streets after your family. Billy and Ruth named our little road that had no name, and they pushed it in the 60s for my father. And so I think that's a wonderful honor. And I really appreciate the fact that people are trying to honor Billy, and it's just really necessary. I had always hoped that that our little bridge and park would be the Billy and Ruth Graham Park, because I agree totally with what was just said about Ruth. She's the reason Billy was in Montreat and not in Florida, where he liked the beach a little better. And they should be honored in any way possible, but I think that they would be more comfortable. There are roads everywhere named after Billy Graham, in Asheville, Charlotte. And I think they would be more comfortable with a park or something where children can play with that sort of name. And I'm so happy that your compromise, it really would have been bad if people would have had to change their addresses. And because we all use the post office on Assembly Drive. And to me, this is a little bit confusing. My vote would be to honor Billy and Ruth together and to honor them with a wonderful park and bridge. Thank you.
We're still looking at the park in the future, Tom, whenever we get the bridge finished, and we'll be talking to somebody about that tonight. Who else? Hey.
I'm Mary Jo Clark. I live at 218 Virginia Road in Montreat. I love the history of Montreat, of the approval of the General Assembly in 1907 for the purchase of these grounds as an assembly grounds. I love that they took over the program in 1917, and then the streets have been named by synods and presbyteries, and I think that's a great history. I love that we haven't named streets after individuals. I mean, if you wanted to make an argument for Robert C. Anderson, you might want to do that because he gave decades of service here, but he also worked really hard to keep us segregated, so I don't think we want to do that. I love the idea of having something else, you know, perhaps the bridge is the right thing to be the Ruth and Billy Graham way, but I think it would be disappointing to have a new idea of naming streets or honorary naming of streets after individuals.
Thank you. Who else? I did run this by David Bruce at the Billy Graham office here and asked him to contact the Graham family to see if they were okay, and I've gotten no negative feedback about that. And I've also talked to Richard Dubose ahead of time to make sure that weren't stepping on any Presbyterian toes, and Richard is fine with it. So anyone else? Any comments at all, please?
Can I just comment, Tim? Thank you all for your thoughts. No decision has been made, obviously. We just wanted to see how everybody felt about some kind of recognition. We will be sending out a survey tomorrow to residents so that those who are not here tonight can have their voice as well. So we'll get back to you after we assess the situation.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else have any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, a little bit close.
I've been talking about doing something for Billy Graham with Jane for all sorts of time. I'm glad we're doing something, but I think it ought to go on the gate. It can be over Assembly Drive.
Well, the gate does not belong to the town of Montreat. The gate belongs to MRA.
I understand that.
So we have to be very careful about what we go nailing up or putting on the gate. There would be a sign, there would be signed out on each intersection, just like that, in either the blue or the brown, whichever the town decides on, that'll signify that it is an honorary street, but it would be all the way up, but no.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. If Richard DuBose would agree, could we do it?
I'll let you have that conversation with Richard. I'm not touching the gate. The women of the church who built that gate might not appreciate that. Anyone else? Jane?
Yes. Yes, I would like to say it's been very helpful for me just to look at and see people's ideas, because it's something that's been really something on my mind and heart, that we need some type of recognition. And there were such good comments as to the spirit of Billy Graham. I think it's going to take a lot of looking at, but I don't want to wait too long. I want to see something happen.
I'd like to make a comment too. I've just followed Jane the same way. I have thought for some time we need to do something appropriate. And I want to thank Tom for getting the pot simmering here by coming forth. You know, a few of us have sort of talked about it, but I think going ahead and bringing a concrete idea up front is a way to really get the ball rolling. And I appreciate everybody being here, giving your honest input and thoughts about it. I think it's great. And congratulate also Tom for sending out the survey as well.
Yes, John. Didn't you? You raised your hand, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm William.
Will.
Okay, William Brown, 218 Virginia Road. I don't want to make a speech. thought that it might be a replacement. I think this is better than a replacement. Growing up here, I lived with people who impressed upon me that Billy Graham lived up the mountain and away from Montreat and outside of the life of our town. And, maybe it was just a thing in our family, but again, it was impressed upon me that he was not a Presbyterian and not involved here. And these two things don't really sit well together for me. They don't really blend. The idea of Billy Graham and the Presbyterian General Assembly aren't really a good match. I think it's way better than replacing Assembly. And so I understand what you were trying to do, and I do acknowledge that doing something is a good idea, but I'm just sitting here thinking as I look at it, they don't fit for me.
Thanks, William. That's why we put it on the forum, because we wanted to get as much input from the citizens, pro and con, before we did anything or proceeded any further. And like Tom said, there will be a survey coming out tomorrow, right? In the Montreat Monday on Friday. So if you'll look for that and fill it out and get it back to us, we'd appreciate it. Any more comments? Okay, if I hear nothing, any questions? We're up, the forum's open now. Any questions or anything any comments you want to make to the commissioners about anything?
You have Wade Burns, ETJ. You have an agenda item for somebody that wants to build up here off of Harmony, and they need a modification to the ordinance so that they can reduce the graded area, the impervious area to get a driveway. And that would take me right back to what I was saying about our founding, that this assembly grounds was founded by the church and with tithes and so forth, and it was with those tithes that they paid for the surveys that laid out these small lots with the idea that they wanted to encourage people to come here. They made them small lots so that folks could afford it, hopefully. That's getting harder and harder to do. And they also made them lots so if you had more money and wanted a bigger house, you could buy more lots. But the smaller lots were with the hope that people could build modest homes here. And that was part of our heritage. And so while I've met the gentleman who wants to build up there, I know nothing more than I met him once. But I do think it's important that where we can, we help folks to come in to the very few lots we have that you can build anything on. We've done a good job of putting an awful lot in conservation. And most of that's been put in conservation, the church themselves has participated in that, particularly MRA. But when I think about MRA's purpose and everything, I'm kind of biased. My wife works there, my family works there, and I've been coming here since 45. And I sometimes worry we don't appreciate enough of what they were about when they're spending $8 million a year giving us all the things we enjoy up here. So I'm in favor of doing what we can when someone's making a special appeal to see if it would be in the community's interest to have a house there. Thanks.
Thank you, Wade. I'm sure the commissioners will take that into consideration when we take that item up in the agenda. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Midget, 168 Oak Lane. I would just like to ask if there's been any progress made in terms of how we collect leaves this fall.
Savannah? We talked about that.
We have talked about it. I sat down with the Public Works Department I guess it was back in December, and they are brainstorming potentially other ways that we could get things done. But I will tell you that right now, staff is happy with the efficiency of leaf pickup. It might be more complicated to do something like a vacuum truck because that is going to involve adding a staff person, which we just don't have the funds for at this time. But we're considering other alternatives as we talk about and prepare for the budget.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the staff is happy with the efficiency of the current plan, but many of us who rake and have to bag are less than thrilled with
I totally
that
understand that,
plan.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nancy. Who else? Anyone? I'm going to have to move that sign before the meeting, having to peer through it. Okay, I've got about 10 minutes till 7, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until 7 when we have our regular meeting. Have a motion from Commissioner Widmer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem Blake. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes carry. We stand adjourned until 7 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, according to my watch, it's 7 o'clock and it's time to start our regular town commissioners meeting. If everyone would stand and face the flag, and let's repeat together the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll bow our heads for just a moment of silence. And remember, Ben Blackburn's father, who passed away since last meeting, Ben was our interim town manager for a good period of time. So just remember Ben and his family in your prayers, if you would, please. Let us bow our heads. Amen. Commissioners, you've had a chance to review the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I move to adopt the agenda.
Commissioner Alexander has made a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a second?
A second.
Have a second from Commissioner Dasher. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
First of all, we're going to receive some information tonight from Jesse Gardner from Civil Design Concepts on the bridge, Texas Road Bridge. Jesse?
Good afternoon, Board. I really don't have a full presentation. I'm more here to answer any questions you may have. I'm here to answer any questions you may have of basically the proposal that I've submitted. And if you have questions on process of what I anticipate in my scope of services.
Just briefly recap what you're going to do. You're going to bring in a prefab and
Yes.
go ahead.
You know, as Barry approached me, you guys were interested in converting to a pedestrian bridge and removing the existing bridge. We've done that. My firm's done that several times before. We've done a couple for Western Carolina University. I've done them on private projects. What I call a prefab bridge basically, you know, comes shipped and you basically set it. Pretty simple. If you've walked hiked the Catawba Falls, if you've walked that trail up, those are basically prefab bridges up that trail system. You can customize them to some extent. So as we get into the design process, I'd come to the board or whoever you have as a design committee and show the options that you can have, weathered steel or what kind of decking and, you know, the safety rails. Those things. So you get to pick the type or aesthetic part of the bridge. My job is basically to engineer it and permit it to make sure it's ready before construction starts, and then I'd help Barry bid it, put it out, and secure a contractor to do the work. We remove the bridge. You'd have to end up building new concrete abutments pretty much right behind the existing abutment bridges. You'll put, they'll have bolts patterned into that, and then delivery of the new ped bridge comes, crane sets it, bolts it down, and then you have a ribbon cut and you're walking across it the next day. So,
okay.
Very cost-effective solution in these situations where you're getting longer bridges that you can't really stick build anymore.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Commissioners, questions of Jesse and our comments?
Jesse, was it the width of the bridge as it is now? Is that?
I've been thinking it would be narrower.
That's what I was thinking too.
No longer need to be that wide because that's more cost effective. You don't need a 20-foot bridge for pedestrian activities, I wouldn't think. So in my mind, we're in the 6 to 10 foot wide range.
Any other?
I think there have been questions about the scope of work, but it sounds like you're really, at this point, not at the construction contract phase, but do you consider, what are you considering in terms of scope of work and stuff?
Also, our step one would be full survey of the area. We have to map the floodplain, the floodway, the creek, the existing conditions, make sure we locate sewer lines and water lines so we don't interfere with those as we remove and add a bridge. We'll need to drill. Part of the abutment design is making sure we drill and understand its bearing capacity. So we'll have to drill on each side of the abutment. Then I bring in and have a structural design, the abutment piece.
Yeah, when you say abutment, you mean the one that's going to be installed, or
Yes.
what's there now?
Know what would be installed. So we'll end up designing and installing a large concrete abutment that the bridge mounts and secures to. And then we do all the permitting that comes with just doing this work around that area.
And the estimate, cost estimates you've given, and we realize it's just an estimate, but that's for everything?
Yes. What numbers did you?
Construction estimate.
Yes.
But it was I don't have it in front of me right now.
Yeah, if
260, something.
we're staying around a 10-foot wide bridge, and I think 260 should cover all in.
And that is for just the basic bridge. There is a beautification or a bridge beautification committee. Is that what it's called, Mason? Aesthetics, yeah. A bridge aesthetics committee that would want to do something beyond that, and that's beyond the 260?
I guess it matters what they would want to do.
Okay. Well, there's everything from some pedestals with statues on them all the way to a covered bridge. So I think that...
Yeah, I'm not anticipating anything. Like, to me, this is the bridge set down, any damaged pavement repaired. That's what's included in my number, not additional landscaping, not repaving all of Texas Road.
Good.
but more just what it takes to construct the bridge and get it useful.
And you would those abutments be capable of holding another structure if, for example, the aesthetics committee wanted to and was able to raise funds to make it a covered bridge?
I would need to know that going into design and the selection of the bridge if you're looking to mount something on top of it, because that becomes part of the structural design. These would be steel bridge. It's going to have its structure is steel, not wood, so it's not something you can just go drill a nail in but if something, and there's covered options too. So as opposed to you building, I can select. But I'm not anticipating, or my budget didn't include a covered bridge in that number. But there's probably an option available.
Thanks.
Yes.
Other questions or comments? Thanks, Jesse. Jesse's done a lot of work for us before and rebuilt the wall up on Graybeard when we had all that water damage and it was about to take the road. Thanks, Jesse, for working with us and continuing to work with us. Leaf blower emissions, a presentation from Jim Williamson. Jim?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Williamson, and I'm here on behalf of the Landmarks Committee. We have several members of our committee here tonight, including Arrington Cox and a couple of others. We'd like to share tonight with you the product of several months of research on a topic that we believe is of real significance to Montreat, and that topic is gas-powered leaf blowers. Some of you may be familiar with columnist Margaret Wrinkle of Nashville, who writes for the New York Times on environmental matters. She has written this about gasoline-powered leaf blowers. The monsters arrive. They come in a deafening, surging swarm, blasting from lawn to lawn and filling the air with the stench of gasoline and death. I would call them mechanical locusts, but that comparison is unfair to locusts. All of us are regularly besieged by noise and fumes from gas-powered leaf blowers. Next, please. Leaf blowers threaten our peace and our healthy environment. If you remember only one fact from this presentation, please remember this. Next. Leaf blowers, I beg your pardon, leaf blowers threaten our peace and our healthy environment. How dirty is the best-selling gas-powered leaf blower? And they are dirty. If you use it for an hour, it emits as much smog-forming pollution as a 2016 Toyota Camry does driving for 1,100 miles. Let me say that again. As much smog-forming pollution as a Toyota Camry driving for 1,100 miles. That's for an hour. Next, please. Leaf blowers may look harmless, but as we've discovered in our research, the truth is more troubling. You don't have to be a chemist to know that this stuff listed here is not good for you. Leaf blowers are highly inefficient and release significant levels of these deadly pollutants. Next, please. Many of us go to great lengths to create surroundings that invite and protect wildlife. Montreat aspires to be a wildlife-friendly community. But noise from leaf blowers is detrimental to many species that rely on sound to communicate. You know, if they can't hear each other, they can't perform activities that allow them to thrive, defending themselves or finding food and reproducing. Leaf blowers also disrupt the habits for critical pollinating species such as bees, butterflies, and moths, and other critters like amphibians and small mammals. Next, please. Gas-powered leaf blowers can damage hearing. The extremely high volume noise from leaf blowers is not simply annoying. Gas leaf blowers produce a low frequency roar that allows sound at harmful levels to travel over a long distance and readily penetrate walls and windows. Gas-powered leaf blowers are among the sources of loud noise that can damage hearing over time. Just talk to your audiologist about that. Electric leaf blowers, on the other hand, are much quieter. Consumer Reports recently gave electric devices an average score of 2.9 for noise compared to 1.7 for gas models. The lower the score, the worse the noise. Next, please. Until we began our research, none of us in the Land Care Committee, I don't think, realized that our concerns are mirrored by those in many other communities, and that the issue of leaf blowers is more complex than it may seem on the surface. In fact, there's a significant debate going on across the country. On one hand, environmental concerns include issues such as air and noise pollution and threats to wildlife. On the other hand, the debate also considers the economic implications for landscaping businesses and municipalities which rely on them. Next, please. Landscaping companies base their income in part on the use of leaf blowers and weed eaters. Their interests, of course, include both cost and efficiency. For landscaping companies, however, or for these companies, power can be perceived as a barrier to transitioning to electric equipment. Now, I think that was in the old days. Consumer Reports, in their recent testing of battery-powered and gasoline-powered leaf blowers, found that the best electric models earned scores identical to the best gasoline models. Electric leaf blowers use rechargeable batteries, which for long jobs can be swapped out through the day if necessary. And if there are concerns about ultimate disposal of those batteries, they can be recycled free of charge at stores like Lowe's. There is, just for example, a new commercial leaf blower made by the Crest Company that offers 85 meters per second airspeed, which is quite high. It offers so-called, this is the company, super quiet operation without compromising on power, and no issue disturbing customers and bystanders, or even having a conversation with a coworker, which, if you've ever tried to do that next to a gas-powered leaf blower, is essentially impossible. Next, please. It was surprising to us to see the findings of studies comparing the costs between electric and gas-powered leaf blowers. Key questions for landscapers and cities and policymakers include the costs of replacing gas blowers with battery-powered equivalents. A recent study concluded that landscapers recover the initial cost of purchasing a battery-powered leaf blower in less than 1 year and achieve significant savings every year afterwards. And the primary reason for this is the large difference between the cost of gasoline and the cost of battery-powered electricity. Next, please. I think there's one more. Go back. Right. So what can be done? What should the role of local governments be in resolving this debate? Many local governments are leading by examples by adopting electric lawn equipment for their own facilities and enacting policies that phase out the use of gasoline-powered lawn equipment over time. Over 100 local governments across the country have passed regulations to ban or restrict gas-powered leaf blowers. And there's a long list. I didn't bring the entire list tonight, but you can see some examples of both large cities and also small towns that have taken that step. Next, please. We at Landcare see our role as undertaking objective research and sharing the findings with Town Council as a basis for possible action. In conclusion, I think we can observe that as a safe, healthy, peaceful, wildlife-friendly community, Montreat needs to move towards more sustainable lawn care practices. As I pointed out, gas-powered leaf blowers pose serious environmental and health risks. Powerful electric blowers with much longer battery life and shorter recharging times than in the past are now available. The initial cost of purchasing a battery-powered leaf blower is recovered in less than a year, and significant savings are achieved every year after. Many local governments have adopted electric lawn equipment for their own facilities and enacted policies that phase out the use of gasoline-powered lawn equipment over time. So our recommendation from the Land Care Committee is that the Montreat Town Council consider this presentation for educational purposes and further study. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. The commissioners and staff will take your presentation under advisement as we move forward. And we do appreciate all the work you put into it And thanks for the Land Care Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. On that same note, I want to thank the Land Care Committee. I have in my hand, and I will give it to Savannah and to Angela, a notice from the Arbor Day Foundation that Montreat has again achieved Tree City USA status, and I'll pass that on to staff and let y'all take care of that, okay?
Also, a thank you to Brad Hester and Tree Board.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's Brad here tonight? No, I don't see him anywhere. Okay. Savannah, you want to cover the consent agenda, please, ma'am, and your comments?
Yes, so for our consent agenda tonight, we have the February 8th Public Forum meeting minutes and the February 8th Town Council meeting minutes. For my communications, I just want to let everyone know that our police officer, Morgan Bocanegra, is back with our police department full-time. We're really excited to welcome Morgan back. So right now, he is working on night shifts. So if you are around in the evenings, stop by, say hi to Morgan. You'll see him out and about. We also wanted to let everyone know that we have a new water billing platform. There'll be more information about that in the Montreat Minute tomorrow. But this is a portal where you can make payments, schedule recurring payments, enroll in auto pay, and view your transaction and consumption history. So there are some little flyers up here on this table if you'd like to learn more, or look for it tomorrow in your Montreat Minute. And that's all I have.
Commissioners, you have received reports from the administration, the planning and zoning, police, public works and water, sanitation, the street department, finance, finance's January and February report, and the February building permit information. Any comments or questions on any of those reports?
I have a question regarding the sanitation report for Barry, if he's here. Barry, I noticed that hauling fees last year were $1,650. This year, same month, it's $4,240. That's a factor of about 3. Could you just tell us what happened there?
That right there is actual tonnage that we're hauling out of here for every haul. That's what we're getting billed. I can't remember a total of hauls, but yeah, that's the tonnage is also doubled to match that number.
So how much of that is trash or things that they're hauling versus increase in price per ton?
Well, the increases stayed the same for how many months? For 4 months, 5 months? So that's been the average price that we've had over the last 4 months or so. So it's just, we're getting a lot of tonnage. Drew's actually increased on what he's having to pick up on Mondays, and that's just.
And is a lot of that from the convenience center increase, or is it just residential
pickup? We have had to move
pickup?
the increase on the convenience center onto a schedule. It has increased that much.
I'm sorry?
We've had to put the convenience center on a schedule instead of a call as needed, because it is filling up quite fast. So that's going to show some of your increase there.
Thanks.
I noted curbside trash pickup last month was almost twice what it was a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
It's definitely doubling.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, just again on finance, the financial report. Rachel, are you here, Rachel? Thank you for not putting in last year's report in just this year's report. I would always get it confused, and so thank you for doing that. I guess that's all I had.
Anyone else? I have nothing under old business. Under new business, item A is the North Carolina Terrace beautification efforts, Winlithia, Jane Holt. Jane? Jane, pull that microphone down. There you go. Not that low. Up about your mouth level. That's good. Thank you.
I'm Jane Holt. I live at 229 North Carolina Terrace in Montreat. The neighbors at the end of North Carolina Terrace have had what we consider to be a land care concern, which we shared with the Land Care Committee, whose motion is before us tonight. Our concern involves the creek and its banks, which are located just below Winlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. You can see the center of the creek in the center of this picture. And it's halfway between Winlithia Springs and the large white house to the right of the creek. In May of 2021, a driveway was partially cleared on the upper bank of the creek, and since that time, the natural vegetation was cleared and the flow of the water in this ephemeral stream has been diverted from its natural course and is now overgrown with grasses and invasive plants. The neighbors living near the creek, Ellen and Gary Henshin, Robert Hope, Bob Wynn, myself, and Maury Gremlin, have long wanted to correct the unnatural course of growth within the creek banks by removing some of the invasive species and planting native seed-grown Appalachian shrubs and wildflowers. We have discovered that the Carolina Native Nursery in Burnsville, North Carolina, grows only native Appalachian plants from seeds. We have developed a plan for adding to the creek and its banks, and to some degree the old driveway bed that follows this, plants which will be purchased and donated by us along with the labor and near future oversight of the planning at no cost to the town. Our plan includes, first of all, adding some shrubs. The shrubs that we suggest are mountain laurel, Catawba rhododendron. This is the pink rhododendron which blooms up around Craggy. Our own rhododendron maximum, which is a pinkish white rhododendron that blooms here in June, and flame azalea. My guess is that it would take only about 3 or 4 of each one of these species of shrubs, widely spaced, to fill in where these grasses are now. We also thought between these shrubs it would be good to add some perennial wildflowers, and many of these you're familiar with. The perennials being blazing star, cardinal flower, bee balm, columbine, Joe Pye weed, fire pink, turtle head, gentian, trillium, and wild iris. The nursery has all of these, and these bloom at all different seasons of spring, summer, and fall. Probably we would need to get just about 4 of each of these 10 wildflower plants. So tonight, we wish to get the town's permission for us to purchase at our own expense native Appalachian plants from the Carolina Native Nursery in Burnsville, plants selected from those above, and to plant them on the disturbed banks and the bed of the ephemeral creek on North Carolina Terrace next to the house at 287 North Carolina Terrace, and then which flows underneath the roadway. I'm presenting this proposal for Ellen and Gary Henson, Robert Hope, myself, Bob Wynn, and Maury Gramley.
Thank you, Jane. Jane, hold on a minute. There may be some questions, if you don't mind.
If you can just sit, we'll bring you the mic. You want to sit down and we'll bring the mic?
I can stand. Hold on.
Okay.
You go,
Thanks,
girl.
Jane. Any questions of Jane from the commissioners? Jane, I commend you and your neighbors for wanting to do this. I remember when that bank was cleared, and I know exactly what it looks like. I've been up there several times and looked at it, and I do commend y'all for wanting to do this and your willingness to do this. The only suggestion I might make is that you contact Savannah and get with Barry and Daniel. Daniel used to do a lot of nursery work, and Daniel may be able to add something or give you some advice or some help with doing that. So that's my only suggestion. Commissioners, y'all have any questions of Jane?
I was wondering, when I was thinking about it, what type of continual work is needed to be done once everything is in?
You are concerned about it being watered when it doesn't rain?
No, not that part. Just things like maybe animals trekking through and things being dislodged. And does it take? Maintenance? Yeah, maintenance, kind of maintenance. Is there maintenance in the type of project that there is? There is some maintenance.
I'm sorry. I didn't quite understand the question. Therefore, there was no answer.
Jane, once you plant the plants,
Yes.
Jane is wanting to know whether or not there's going to be care to those plants that y'all plant to keep them healthy and growing.
Yes. We have included in this that we would be responsible for their future care until their roots are solid in the ground, and that we would be responsible for that.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much to the 7 of you for doing this, and I laud you in your private efforts. Thank you. The only question that I have is in your proposal to us, you say that you would be planting the native Appalachian plants, and you would plant them on the disturbed banks and the bed of the ephemeral creek. I'm not sure that it's allowed to plant it in the bed of the creek, is it? We would need to check that out. I've got an ephemeral creek running through my yard, and it's got to be cleared.
That's why I asked her to get with Barry and Daniel. They could clarify that for her, I'm sure.
We'll be glad to clear that. For the most part, there is a little seep of water in the bed of that creek, and only under occasional rains is there actual water. And there are naturally growing plants that are not invasive already there on the bed. And we would not pick out that exact spot to add these particular shrubs. They would be more to the sides and then up on the side of the creek.
And I think to the mayor's point, Barry and Daniel are very well versed in that, and would be able to help at no fee to you.
Yes.
Any other
Fee,
questions?
fee,
Excuse me.
fee free.
Any other questions or comments of Jane? All right, Commissioners, there's a suggested motion there. Do I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve the North Carolina Terrace beautification effort, Winlithia Springs.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second from Commissioner Dasher. Further comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Thank you, Jane, and thank you and your neighbors. Item B on the agenda is a Pigeon River Fund grant proposal. Gene Norris.
I get to talk about something else beautiful. Listening to all those flower names was just fabulous. Thank you, Jane. Okay, so I'm Patty Pyle, 334 Chapman Road, and I'm here on behalf of the Land Care Committee with my co-worker, Gene Norris. In your packet, starting I think on page 32, is another in a series of grant requests that we're submitting to raise funds to build the accessible trail and small park called Flat Creek Crossing. This grant request is made to the Pigeon River Fund, one of many philanthropies managed by the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina. It was named Pigeon River Fund many years ago when it was first licensed by Duke Energy with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. This particular fund supports projects to improve streams and rivers in a 3-county area, including Buncombe, Haywood, and Madison counties. Recent grants they've awarded have gone to schools, to community centers, sanitary districts, agencies like Asheville Greenworks and Environmental Quality Institute, to name a few. So to be eligible for this grant, a project has to address any of these 4 target areas: improving surface water quality, enhancing fish and wildlife management and habitats, expanding public access, increasing citizen awareness about their roles in protecting these resources. Flat Creek Crossing is a really good match for this grant since we hit all these targets in our overall plan. And in this particular request, we meet the first 3 of them especially. It's a 1-year reimbursable grant, and requests to them can range from $5,000 to $35,000, and awards are announced around May 1st. So with careful input from our designer contractor, Flat Creek Crossing has been broken down into 7 phases of planned work. Our proposal tonight focuses on phase 3. And we're requesting from Pigeon River Fund $34,065. That's the budgeted amount it will take to stabilize the creek bank and return it to its natural state, remove debris, remove invasive species like the wisteria, and also get rid of the poison ivy, to extend and improve the riparian buffer with additional native plantings. And the riparian buffer is that border of trees and plants that keep sediment and pollutants from entering the creek and provides shade, which regulates the water temperature. That's so critical for our trout and our salamanders. The work outlined in this grant request lays the foundation for major work ahead in phase 4. That's removing asphalt and concrete, grading, installing the stormwater control infrastructure, and surfacing of the trail route itself. That phase is expected to cost just over $100,000, and we look forward to going after another major grant for that section of work, so stay tuned for news on that. But with money from this grant and the $10,000 grant request approved last month to the Black Mountain Swannanoa Valley Endowment Fund, phase 3 and also phase 2 work can be scheduled concurrently. And this will save on heavy equipment rental, on operator pay, haul and dump fees. It adds efficiency and it limits the disturbance to the land. So we expect to start work in August after the busy summer season has ended. And this grant money, if we get it, needs to be spent in 1 year. So we've had several conversations with Tara Schultz, the Senior Program Officer for Pigeon River Fund. We've met with Kayla DiChristina about the permits and with Savannah about our grant eligibility and just how to think about this application. We thank them both and want to extend special thanks to Angie Murphy for answering our many, many phone calls to Town Hall. Thank you all so much. We are moving forward with confidence on this project. Our goal remains clear from the beginning that everyone should be able to get to the creek. So we recommend that this request by Montreat Land Care to Pigeon River Fund for $34,065 be approved by the council so it may be submitted before the March 15th, 5 p.m. deadline. So please let us know if you have questions. Yeah, these windows are really tight.
Motion to table.
That's funny.
Well, we can't ask too many questions or we'll go into tomorrow. Any questions? Commissioners, any questions at all? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the Pigeon River grant proposal while allowing for possible minor modifications.
Have a motion from Commissioner Dasher. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Widmer. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. You can make your deadline tomorrow. Adoption ordinance. Kayla DeChristina, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission members. My name's Kayla DeChristina. I'm the Town Zoning Administrator. Before you tonight is a text amendment that you saw at your February meeting for an amendment to the Montreat General Ordinance, specifically the Stormwater Ordinance section regarding the built-upon area buffer and potentially allowing an exception to that. In your staff report tonight includes a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the Planning and Zoning Commission on, let me get the date. On February 14th, reviewed the application and proposed revised, not revised, but alternative language to what the applicant had proposed. Commissioner Blake worked with some of the Planning and Zoning Commission members to craft that language. We had a good discussion with public input, and ultimately the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to approve the text amendment with the revised text. So that's what I've got before you today. You all should have the text before you. I'm here to answer any questions y'all have. That's it.
Any questions, anyone? I'm going to stop just a moment and ask if there's any public comment. I skipped over public comment before I started the old business. Do what?
We need to open and close a public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We can do it after new business, Mayor.
Okay. All right. You got a motion to open the public hearing?
I move we open the public meeting.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes carry.
Do y'all have any questions for me?
Okay.
You might. Okay, I'll stay here.
Okay. Floor is open. Seeing no one jump up, I have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion to close the public hearing from Commissioner Widmer. I have a second. Second from Commissioner Alexander. All those in favor of the motion to close the public hearing?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes carry. Okay. All right. I have a motion on this item, item D, to move to adopt the revision to ordinance
One question I had about the ordinance was, yeah, I think one of the concerns was that, you know, initially we didn't want to have just a carte blanche to cross the creek. Are we okay to move on? Okay. And so I think Commissioner Blake came up with some language that was a little bit maybe more restrictive than what we had initially, correct? I'd like to hear from the other commissioners your thoughts on creating a provision that didn't allow for any LLCs or corporations to buy property. We can't do that?
You cannot regulate property, you can't regulate land use based on property ownership.
Okay. How about short-term rentals? And
Not the subject of this text amendment.
okay.
This is limited to the stormwater ordinance.
The short-term rental thing it's the General Assembly is doing some work. I'll just speak to it briefly since you brought it up. The General Assembly is very gun shy about regulating short-term rentals, and because we are, you know, Dillon's rule state, we are only, you know, empowered to regulate what they tell us we can regulate. So there's actually some debate on what exactly with short-term rentals can be regulated. Life and safety issues, definitely, but other things, it's a little bit fuzzier. So I think that there's a conversation to be had about short-term rentals, but I think the General Assembly needs to decide first how they're going to handle it, and then we'll have that conversation.
Okay. Yeah. That's all I have.
Okay. Do I have a motion on this item D?
I do have a question.
Sure.
For Mayor Pro Tem Blake. You were working closely with P&Z on this. Are you satisfied with
Yes,
the way it's being
I
presented to
am.
us?
In particular, I'd like to thank Dan Dean, who helped me with the language, and also the committee as a whole did Planning and Zoning did a very good job, made some major improvements in it. I had worked up some suggestions that needed some work because we just had a short period of time, and I think we came out with a very good product in a short period of time, and I think everybody's happy with it. They approved it unanimously, and I think, and we're not going to hold our friend up. So we're ready to go, I think.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt?
I'll move adoption of this text amendment amending the stormwater ordinance.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Blake. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second from Commissioner Alexander. Any further discussion and/or questions? All those in favor of the motion to adopt signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Floor is open for any public comment on anything.
I'm sorry, I think we may need to clarify the motion just to make sure that we have the right text.
I just want to make sure that we have the correct language that y'all want to adopt, because I know there were a couple options in the packet. So on page 11 of so it's the staff report from Planning and Zoning. It looks like this. Do you have the page of the
packet?
I'll
Page
get it.
64.
The motion was to adopt TA 2024-01
It is, but I need to
for
know.
revisions to.
Right, but is it the Planning and Zoning Commission's action?
Yes,
Is
it's
it
the planning
legal
and zoning,
counsel?
it's the
Okay.
recommendation of the Planning and Zoning
As
Commission.
written.
Yes, as recommended,
Thank you.
that exact wording. Okay.
Is everyone okay with that? Does your vote stay the same?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries then. Okay. Floor is open for public comment. Yes, ma'am, Letta Jean.
Letta Jean Taylor, 386 Oklahoma Road. I just want to thank Daniel and Barry for fixing the hole on Lookout this last week. We were bouncing in it every whip stitch. And that brings me to infrastructure. As you all look at the budget, I won't be here next week, so I can't come and talk to you then. But it's really important as we ride around Montreat to see what bad shape some of our roads are in. And so I would hope you would include that in your budget for next year, whatever the cost may be. But before you do the infrastructure, we need to take care of our staff. So if you'll think about their salaries, I would appreciate that as well. But I really appreciate what Public Works has done for us in the town. And as you drive into Montreat, it looks really nice. And as long as you don't go in Arkansas or some of those roads, you're very happy in Montreat. Thank you.
Thank you, Letta Jane. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Arrington?
I'm Arrington Cox, 203 Virginia Road, and I am chairman of Land Care. I wanted to thank you all so much for approving 2 projects that are clearly in our mission, which one is the beautification of the creeks of the bank and the stream below Winlithia Springs, and of course the other one concerns Flat Creek Crossing, which is near and dear to our hearts. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Arrington. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll move on to item E. Savannah?
Yes, so Mayor, thank you for helping us track down Mr. George Sawyer, who has agreed to serve on the Board of Adjustment as a regular member for a 3-year term.
Do I have a motion on this?
Yes, I move what do we have? I'd like to nominate George Sawyer to fill the vacant general position on the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Alexander. Any comments? George is not running, is he?
I'll just say thank you, George. As you and I talked beforehand, it's probably the most important commission or board that we have, and that work is very valuable to this town. So thanks for being a part of that.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item F is discussion or adoption of the fund balance policies. Savannah and Mason.
Yes, so if you will look on page, sorry, let me pull it up quickly. If you will look on page 96 of your packet, you'll see a proposed fund balance policy that Mayor Pro Tem Blake put together after discussing this policy with our auditors, the local government commission, and discussing it with our finance officer, Rachel. I think we all feel comfortable with it. We think that we have a great, I think we have a great product here. So I'll let Commissioner Blake say more about it, but that's the policy we're looking at, is on packet page 96.
Okay. Thank you. What this fund balance policy does is essentially 2 things. One, it adopts an available, what's referred to, or I'll refer to, is it's referred to by a lot of things, available fund balance ratio requirement, which is it's got a lot of names because it's got a lot of stuff. It's literally a formula, and if you have to think of it as a formula that they take a snapshot of every year, the local government commission of the state, and every year on June 30, the last day of the fiscal year, they make a calculation for each town, and then they make a table of it that they publish, and they've got certain requirements or thresholds. And the formula basically is what's referred to in local government accounting as your total fund balance less some designated items that are set forth in that formula, and they're listed in detail in the policy we're adopting. And so at the end of that, you get what they refer to as the available fund balance. And for those of you who aren't familiar with local government accounting, if you remember business accounting, you've got sort of assets less liabilities equals equity. Well, in a municipal accounting, it's assets less liabilities equal fund balance. That's what fund balance is. It's essentially what equity would be with a business. And that could be composed of different kinds of assets, some liquid, some unliquid. But in any event, they take a picture of this ratio of this fund balance as a percentage of the expenditures in your prior year. Now, there's a reason for that. I don't want to go into it, but the point is, it's a calculation. This one made one day a year. And the second point is, if for a town with our size of budget, if we don't have at least 34% ratio, we get in trouble. We are reported to the state, again, takes this snapshot June 30th every year. If you don't make that ratio, then they come in, they take a look at it, and you can get on a list that you don't want to be on that we just got off. And so the fund balance requirement in this policy needs to be a percentage that will make clear we don't get in on that list. And what the policy does is essentially requires our finance director and our town manager to manage the town's funds so that we meet that ratio when we get there at the end of the year. And they do that by only appropriating so many funds in our budget up from the fund balance, and obviously controlling expenses too. So that we place that responsibility on them. It's also our responsibility when we set the budget and as we make amendments to the budget to make sure as a commission that at the end of the day we're not going to miss that fund balance requirement. And so I've left a blank here. I'm going to recommend, but after talking with Hugh Alexander, he recommends that the previous fund balance and that we weren't sure how to calculate, but is now specified in here how to calculate, and it's the same calculation the state uses, was 35%. I think we need to raise it to 40% to give us a little bit more cushion. When the current 35% was adopted, there was a flat 8% minimum that got changed in 2021. It's now for us 34%. And so 35% might have been great way back 10 or 15 years ago, but it's not now. So Hugh recommends 40. That raises it well above the 35%, but it doesn't tie the staff's hands. It gives staff freedom in terms of their work. So that's item one. That's the first of the two things in the fund balance policy. The second is an accessible fund reserves requirement. This isn't a snapshot. This is a piggy bank. Okay? And what this requirement says is that each year we will essentially a certain amount that we decide upon, and for discussion purposes, I'm going to suggest that we make that $500,000, and that's just for discussion purposes, but it's a figure that the mayor has mentioned as what we could have certainly used the last time we had a hurricane and a lot of work to do all of a sudden. And that of the accessible funds, and accessible funds in the municipal accounting are essentially money we've got. They're not committed to anything. They're spendable funds. They're cash or near cash, and they're not committed. They're not restricted. And so we've got readily available funds in the amount of, again, my motion's $500,000 that is set aside every year. And we don't add to it each year. It's just, and in another year we can decide, the policy says that staff will come back to us and say, well, we think it needs to be $600,000, and we can move it back and forth. The state actually has a recommendation that we have two different ratios, and I just get wrapped around the tire every time I try to figure it out and keep them straight, and it's just mind-bending. This way, we have one ratio we need to meet, and we got a piggy bank, and we're going to keep spendable funds set aside at all times during the year, and the only time we can get into the piggy bank is when the town
finds we're in a dire financial condition and need that money for emergencies that we did not anticipate, either that's A, or we don't have enough money because of fund shortfalls that we did not anticipate, that's B, or C, a unique situation comes around where we can make a one-time purchase of something and avoid financing, or we've got an opportunity that is really unique and we can spend the money. In each case, though, it has to be an unusual circumstance. The town has to make a finding on that part and pass it. So that's as easy a way as I can find to explain it. And at the end of the day, we ask that the town manager and finance officer are charged with carrying out the policy. And that's it.
Okay, we've had a presentation. We've got really two items to consider. Is the fund balance suggested at 40%, and the accessible funds at $500,000. Any questions of Savannah or Mason?
First of all, thank you. You both have poured so many hours into trying to figure this out, and you have also educated the state treasurer's staff as well in this process. Your suggestion of option 3, I think, is a good one. The only question that I have is not the 40%. I think that makes a lot of sense. But it seems like the 500,000 is rather arbitrary. Is there some objective reason why the 500,000 was selected? Before you answer, let me just say, the reason I ask is that what that does is, that's our piggy bank, and we all have piggy banks. We also have checking accounts and maybe even another savings account, a working savings account. 500,000, if it's too high, is going to take away from that other working account, and maybe giving us the inability to fix streets or doing something else, because that 500,000 we've put into a situation just for emergencies or special circumstances.
Right, and I put it out there for discussion purposes. The reason I came to that number, and again, for discussion purposes, I don't have strong feelings. I have strong feelings we need to set a certain amount aside. The reason I started with 500 is A, the mayor mentioned it, and B, if you take that sample policy, they had 25% of your accessible fund balance, which if I did that math, came out to for the last year, came out to $550,000. But I don't pay a lot of attention to that sample policy anyway, so that I'm happy with whatever number, and I certainly understand. But to make sure everybody does understand, our total fund balance, I think, at the end of last year, and again, this is the June 30, was, I want to say $1.2 million. So if we have our, let's see.
You remember what it was, Rachel?
I know it was over 50%, but I don't remember the exact number.
The ratio.
But I think he's looking for the dollar amount. I know the ratio.
The total fund balances was $1,678,000. Now, part of that, about $650,000 was stabilization by state statute, which means that basically it was not liquid funds. So you had essentially $1 million of liquid funds, some of it restricted, some of it committed, but so that would be half our cash. So if somebody wants to make it less than 500, I'm fine.
I'm not in a position to make a recommendation. I just don't want to hamstring ourselves.
The only reason I ever came up with 500,000 is when we got hit by that first, what was the first storm, Barry? Was it Alberta? In Alberta, we had over $500,000 worth of expenses to repair some of the infrastructure in Montreat. And we got 75% of that back through the state emergency fund. It wasn't FEMA. FEMA didn't help us at all. But we got 75% of that back, and that's where the 500,000 came from. I think it was a little over 500, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, it was, and we're still having to slowly complete those projects because of, funding being, the way it is right now. And we've got one more project left to finish from that storm from 2008.
That Texas road below the swimming pool? Yeah.
I think too, something to keep in mind is that this number, it doesn't have to be permanent. If we get into budgeting, or if we get down the road and we find that it doesn't work, it's something that we can bring back for discussion and move it in either direction. It's it's up to you all.
Does someone else have a recommended, does it 400,000? 450,000?
I'll amend my motion to be 400,000.
400,000. Is everybody more comfortable with 400,000?
No, not necessarily.
You
guys-
started this brouhaha.
I did, but I didn't say I had an answer either. I'll leave it up to you two brain trusts there.
Well, my brain's about half dead.
400 sounds like a
400,000. Is that acceptable with everybody? Okay, I'd really like to do two motions on this thing. One, for the percentage to go to 40%. If I can get a motion on the ratio to 40% on the fund balance.
I'm going to move approval of first overall alternative number 3, that approach using the ratio and the flat fund, and I'll move we approve it at this motion the 40% portion of it.
40%. Do I have a second on that?
I second that.
I have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, the 400,000. Do I get a motion on
I'll
that?
move the 400,000.
All right, 400,000 on the available funds in reserve.
I second that.
I have a second from Commissioner Alexander. The motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Blake. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Whoa, that was great. We got enough, Angie? Okay. Now, Savannah, you're up again on item G, the proposal to provide legal services. And this is an item that's just for discussion
Yes,
tonight.
this is just for discussion.
No action.
What I'm looking for from you all tonight is just consensus that, and I'll give some background on this as well, but just some consensus that you would like to talk to these attorneys at Allenstown Kilburn about potentially representing the town as the town's attorneys, or if you're not interested. So this law firm has done some work for us, is doing some work for us. They are interested in becoming the town's representation, regular representation. I have found them to be very professional, very responsive. And so if you're interested in discussing that possibility with them, I think the next step might be to just set up a time where you all can meet them and they can meet you and have a conversation about it. I did talk to Commissioner Blake about potentially having a conversation with them about making some slight adjustments to the proposed scope of work. So when I go back to them, if you are interested, the proposed scope of work, the scope of representation, just to change it from, I think right now they are proposing 24 Board of Commissioner meetings and no Board of Adjustment and Planning and Zoning meetings. So we could potentially have that adjusted to 12 BOC meetings, 12 BOA or P&Z meetings.
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
the things that I think is attractive to Savannah here is they've got sort of a one guaranteed amount, so to speak, of $2,500 a month. And the question is, what do you get for that?
Exactly.
And my conversation with her is the way they've drafted it, not enough. So we need to talk to them. I think we can, and, you know, perhaps our current council too, in getting a package. I think it's a good idea to try to do that. But if they're not going to include attending Value Adjustment Board and Planning and Zoning Board meetings when Kayla thinks she needs some help, then we you know, that's where we found our liability is. That's where we need attorneys. And if
I
that's
agree.
not part of the deal, then it's not a deal.
So if you all are interested in discussing this with them further, I'll reach out, ask them to make that amendment to their proposed scope of representation, and then set up some times where you all can meet them.
Is that okay with commissioners?
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
That's fine, Savannah. We'll do
Thank
that.
you.
Item 11 is public comment again. Any public comment? Yes, Letta Jane, forget something?
I want to say thank you for working on the fund balance percentage. We put that in place because we got a letter from the Local Government Commission because we didn't have 100%. Instead of 8, back then it was 8%. We didn't have 100%. 2 years in a row we got letters. So thank you for boosting it above what's required so you don't get caught again. Thank you. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, any commissioners' communication tonight? Tom?
I have one, and we'll mention it in the Montreat Minute tomorrow. If you all have seen your water bills, you may be shaking your head and saying, wow, it's high again. Just a reminder that we did not charge for 2 MSD, the Metropolitan Sewer District, for the tax treatment fee or the sewer line maintenance fee last month. So this is a catch-up month, and then it'll go back to where it normally should be.
And that will be in Montreat Minute tomorrow also. Busy Montreat Minute tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. See anybody? Items coming up, meetings coming up. Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop is Friday the 22nd at 2 p.m. here in Town Hall. Tree Board is Tuesday the 26th, 9:30 in Town Hall. Tentative Board of Adjustment meeting is March 28th at 5 p.m. in Town Hall. Land Care, Wednesday, April 3rd, 9 a.m. in Town Hall. April Town Council meeting, Thursday, April 11th, 7 p.m. Public forum begins at 6:30. Bearwise Montreat Presbyterian Church, Know Your Three Bears. Behavior and Biology with Ashley Hobbs, Wednesday, April 17th at 4 p.m. in Town Hall. Refreshments at 3:45. Tree Board, Tuesday, April 23rd at 9:30 a.m. in Town Hall. Planning and Zoning Commission, Thursday, April 25th at 10:30 a.m. in Town Hall. Tentative Board of Adjustment, Thursday, April the 25th at 5 p.m. in Town Hall. All of these have Zoom options. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, we're going to be here a while. I want to thank all the boards and people who serve on these boards, George and Gene and all you folks who do all the work out there and make us look good and make Montreat look good and all the communications you keep open with the board. I just want to thank y'all very, very much. Do I have a motion now?
I move a motion to close the meeting.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second from Commissioner Dasher. We stand adjourned.
Got a lot done.